This is still the Festival of Storytellers, Chapter 3. We are still streaming live here on our YouTube channel, Facebook page, and Twitter. We are down to our last Honor the Hour session. Thank you for still tuning in right now with us.
Yeah, so we just left off from author Walter Clark Buckles, 1 hour long session of informative and very exciting discussion about his trilogy, Outland Exiles, Exile Escape, and Malila of the Scourge. So it was very fascinating learning more about his journey and his trilogy.
As you can see, his book was three books. First one is Outline Exiles, and Exiles Escape, and Malala of the Scourge, and hopefully maybe we will see a fourth book on this series as he continues to inspire us and tell us more about these writings. So, as on the other interview with Botwell, actually, he mentioned that he was a physician for years, up until 2 years ago, as he already retired, and he was a physician that specifically for newborn infants, and he was also quite a traveler. And while he was also traveling, he was actually doing still doing physician work, helping a lot of people along the way while he is traveling actually also. So that's quite an inspiring one also, as he still helps even though he's also enjoying his travels a lot.
In the interview, did you manage to catch like what was his inspiration in writing the books?
Uh, as he mentioned on writing the books, his inspiration was about a 10-year-old boy, a Ghanaian boy, that asked him a question about a lot of things going on around us, and he was explaining about that Guinea was colonized by the British country, but he was talking with the boy, but the boy wasn't. No, it's not like he doesn't understand, but um, saying that the Guinea wasn't a colonized country of the British, of the English country, but it was still quite fascinating also. As the outline Excel actually talks about Malala, that's the main character of Clark Bottles's book, first book, Outline Exile. It talks about a lot more about Malala. Um, he was a member of the Unity government of the society that she's been with, and she was like the hero of the story of that society also
All
actually.
right. Speaking of society, Walter's book is about two societies, right? If I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
as it was mentioned earlier with him, like there's two societies in his book. One society has a retirement age mandated that people only live until 40. The other one has like 107 until 170. And on the retirement age, on the first society for Malala, like Malala society, they have a retirement age mandated at 40. And then after 40, you suddenly vanished or something like that, as no one knows what happened to you after you turn 40. But
Imagine that like happening in real life. Would that be very
yes,
scary?
it's quite a bit scary if you're already 40, you're gonna be like, goodbye,
It's like
everyone.
Judgment Day.
It's like judgment day for you, as it is like a law for them. And first book, as Walter actually talked about in the first book about Malala's adventure on the country and how he tried to strive on going to the outlands where he was sent by her boss, to the outlands for work, but Malala didn't know that he was actually sent to like his her dad or something.
So she was strict. Basically, she was strict into
Yes.
thinking that
It was
after 40, she still has a life.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like she'll still have work. But in this story, a lot of things happening on the journey of Malala, as it was a political thing also, as her survival against the harsh environment. So yeah, and then after that, only on first book of Bagel, the Outland Exile only mentioned a little bit about Jessie, where she meets Malala on the Outlands while Jesse was trying to find someone he can capture from Malala's society.
Jesse is from the other
Yes,
society.
Jesse is from another society that has the retirement age of until lifespan 170. Uh, so Jesse was a character that was trying, was told to find someone he can capture to bring on his society, and luckily, of course, as the story progressed, he found Layla on the outlands, and it wasn't like a love story of romance that is first love at first sight. But when Jesse Johnstone started to approach Layla, they started to fight with each other. He's trying to kill her, and she's trying to kill him, something like that of a story. And that's how the second book started. As the second book is about Malayla's predicaments and problems with her own society and their adventure with Jesse Johnston, and how she started to manage knowing about more about Jesse, and how she managed to know about Jesse's society and starting to escape from the illusion of her own
Her own
society.
So
Yes.
this book basically like connects these
Yes.
characters together. So
Yes.
they maybe unravel more about their past,
Yes.
about their societies.
That's how these books are, and like the inspiration of about it. I think Bartle did mention about the inspiration of about this book with the age retirement and middle age is because of the age systems on our societies right now, with how also Ghana's, like she mentioned about Ghana, that Ghana's age span has a lot longer than regular like lifespan in the US. So he did mention about that also. I mean, like, what would you do if you have a short lifespan, right?
I mean, it's hearing about what the story is basically like conveying. It's really fascinating how such maybe like a simple concept as maybe age like leads some authors, like for example Walter Weltwell, to make a trilogy. I mean, it's not. It's even hard already to write a book, much less like three
Yes.
books about it. So it's really fascinating how an author's mind works, right? So
Yes.
from a simple concept, expanding it to a trilogy, it's very fascinating,
Yes.
especially with Walter's background being being a physician. It's not an only being a physician. He's
Being
not
a physician
a writer.
travels a lot actually.
Mhm.
As he mentioned, he likes to travel a lot, and he's been traveling a lot and also helping a lot of people as a physician also. So I think as he travels around, he finds inspiration throughout the persons that he meets along the way, and put it into his writing and to inspire other people also, as he was inspired by someone.
So this just proves to show that inspiration is really all around us. Like
Yes.
maybe one day you can wake up and be inspired to write about the book because maybe just you saw a bird or because you encountered someone helping another person. So it really, like how the world works really is unpredictable.
Yes.
Short to say.
Everything is unpredictable. And also, as Jesse Johnson have second book, a third book, and our third book also, it's still a continuation of Malala's story, Malala of the Scourge, as the adventures still continues as Malala discovers herself, went to the outlands, and then continues on living until he finds peace. Because on the middle of the scourge, it's the start of the upcoming war between the societies that
The two societies.
yes, and then hopefully as maybe a fourth series will come for this trilogy, because as the story progressed also.
Yes, it becomes more exciting. Like the more the story progresses, perhaps Boutwell will maybe encounter more inspiration to unravel to incorporate in his books. So for those who are watching us live, if you're interested to maybe learn more about these societies, like the one with the younger age range and the one with the older age range, and how they differ from each other, you can check out Walter Baldwell's trilogy on Amazon.com, BarnesandNobles.com, and of course on our website at ReadersMagnet.com. You know, like listening to Walter's an interview for an hour, it really is amazing how such, even for someone with no writing, like professional writing background or no, like he didn't study writing, he didn't
Yes.
study literature, he's a physician, but he managed to write so passionately about something and create a very wonderful and amazing sort of like so a little
Experience.
mysterious, a little action based book. It's really fascinating how the mind can like push you out of
Yes.
your comfort zone, right?
Anyone can be inspired to write if there's like a specific inspiration that you have in mind also.
Yes.
Like any, if you search or even look at somewhere, if something comes into your mind, everyone can be a writer as long as they put their heart into it.
Yes, that's right.
Also,
So, Walter's book is actually a dystopian genre, under the dystopian genre. It can
yeah,
be.
he did also mention that he put it as a political history, historical politics. I think he did mention as he was on the interview, because it's also fiction, but it's also political because the story, the trilogy of Botwell started with how the politics are running, like how the politicians, the government are trying to rule over everything that you think you have your own decision, but you don't have one.
Because it's like probably or the government is just mandating things over the society.
Yes, something like that. So I think hopefully it inspires a lot and opened a lot of mind to everyone that it's not government is not absolute or something, as Botwell mentioned in his books, like as Malayla as the character and Jesse Johnson discovered one by one the mysteries and all the struggles with how their government, their society works, with how one society has their own problems, while one society have their own problems also, as everyone has their own.
So it's also basically, while it's like this fictional dystopian world, it can also be this commentary about politics, right? So it's a very amazing balance, sure to say, about like what politics can be quite, for me personally, it can be complex, it can be complicated, it can be also boring, it can be very technical.
Yes.
But Balto managed to find a way to discuss it, to
Yes.
and like share his opinions to the world by making it a bit more exciting, a bit
Yes.
more fascinating with the world he has created.
A bit more fascinating, a bit has a lot more fantasy into it as you dive deeply, as you understand how like the real world works and how he started like making this books into like a fiction that you can like understand, inspired with, and like enjoy reading, but also give you something you can learn of out of this. Like you can use in the real world also.
So his book is really it stands as an example of like how significant fiction can be,
Yes.
to our society. While it's different, how it tackles concepts is different from like nonfiction books.
Mhm.
It can still be, it can convey the same meaning, the same consequential
Yeah.
message to society, right?
Yes. As everything has their own meaning, and hopefully, both those books will also be able to inspire you a lot, as it will be an adventure pack with his main character Malila, as she went through onto the journey from being like a person who's a hero from his own society going throughout becoming the enemy of his own society and learning more and more about everything, the mysteries and all the struggles on her own self and also in her society and the government as he faced throughout the war that they have with Jesse Johnson. And also a little bit of romance with Jesse Johnson as she goes back.
Oh, right. So I guess it while it's also very political, it still has romance, right?
Yes, of course, it's a little bit of romance as they put it with Jesse Johnson and Melilla as they had an adventure together, even though they started killing each other, but they then started knowing more about each other and started to
Like each
yeah,
other.
yes.
So it's sort of like an enemies to lovers kind of
Mhm.
romance.
Yes, something like that. So it's also politics, romance, it's a mix of everything that will put a bit of thing in your mind.
So it's wonderful. So how speaking of like enemies to lovers, let's maybe discuss about that. What are your thoughts of about stories that starts as enemies to
Hmm. I'm not that sure. I mean, as you say, sometimes, what I learn, like having your enemies sometimes, the more you hate, the more you love. Something
do you
like that.
believe in that? The more you hate, the more you love.
Maybe not, but I mean, a lot of people do start with that. Like, as long you started being like the enemy of someone, hating that person. If it's an opposite sex, like if it's another guy you hate so much, you don't like to talk about him, you don't like to see him, but he starts to annoy you, he starts to do this, you start to hate someone, you don't like to be with him, but when he's not there, you start to look for that kind of thing. Like, why is he not annoying me right now? Why is he not like this? So it's something where you start off.
So you start seeking the attention that he
Yes.
was once giving you. Mm-hmm. I
Yeah,
see.
it's actually quite true. Like the attention that you want from those person, the at first you don't like, but because you got used to it, that the attention is there, and then it suddenly disappears. That's where you like maybe I don't hate that kind of thing.
Do you think like that's like true affection? That's true attraction
The
when you
opposite
start
attracts.
when you start from being enemies to being lovers? Do you think
I'm
that's
not quite sure because I'm not yet experiencing that kind of things yet, but hopefully I will be. But surely, as everyone gets inspired and everyone has their own stories, I mean, I'm not sure yet, but maybe someone somewhere there, they had their own story started with like that, being an enemy and being inspired with one another, and then after that, living together for how many years, for a long span until, you know.
okay? So another thing that Bothwell discussed during his interview was about his fantastic journey in writing this book, or these books rather, since it's a trilogy. Um, the journey was not easy.
Of
Right,
course.
of course, it took him a long time, and probably throughout the writing journey,
Mhm.
there were a bit setbacks. There were a lot of setbacks.
Mhm.
Probably had a time where he had a little bit of confusion on how to proceed. So,
Yes. Of
um,
course, every author has their own struggles in writing the book. I mean, some other authors' writing process takes up to like 3, 4, 5 years to finish just one book, and some other authors takes like a few weeks to write this book. It depends. As I have been on a pre-interviews, I've talked to a few, quite a few authors, and I mean, every one of them has their own struggles, and sometimes it's just the inspiration. Like sometimes when they're sitting there and something just came up, they just need to write it down, and then after that, it's not like after tomorrow there will be another inspiration that comes up. Sometimes it just takes few years, few days, few months, few hours maybe until you get the um, proper thing that you want to write in your own book because it just pops up. It doesn't like come to you like I want to write this, so I will just write it. Sometimes writing is about like it just pops out in your head and you want to write this. Some That's the common trait that I found with the authors that I have talked to about. Like it's not about how long they write it, but it's about like it suddenly happens with them. Like it's well, sometimes they see something, sometimes they feel something, sometimes they remember something, sometimes they just suddenly someone talks about it with them, so it gives them some inspirations and a lot of challenges and how to deal with it. With um, the same with writing stories with back your experiences, your childhood, a lot of things like that. Sometimes it's hard to write it to put it in a few pages book or like to cram it in one book that everyone can read but still inspire and understand everything that you've been through and not putting a lot of things.
It's
So
really just
yeah.
about like pushing, maybe pushing yourself and like the determination to finish something.
Yes.
That while you're there may be some pauses, it's not really definite. Like you can really conquer these challenges. So personally, in your experiences, like throughout maybe like your career or your in whatever you're passionate about, like whenever you feel setbacks, whenever you encounter setbacks, like what do you usually do to like power yourself, to motivate yourself to push through these challenges?
Going through like on setbacks, even though you're like studying, especially in college, it's quite hard, and then you're working. While you're working, a lot of setbacks and a lot of disappointments and a lot of negativities going on throughout your career. Especially you're starting to doubt yourself. It's if it's gonna be the career that you want to go through, or if it's you're in college, is it gonna be? Am I gonna graduate? Am I gonna finish this? If I'm working, am I doing the right thing? Am I like, especially when you're starting a career, it's a bit of a negative thing, and there's a lot of setbacks because you don't have an experience, you don't have a lot of things to, and you're just starting in a new water again. Like it's like you're from the lake now you're going to the sea. Like
So
it's another
completely
environment.
different
It's another
environment.
environment, another thing to think about when you're starting your career, like going throughout the interview process, going throughout like through companies so that you can work, you can do this, and a lot of things. It's quite hard, and there's a lot of setbacks. Is maybe you're gonna underestimate yourself. Why can I do this? Am I now?
What do you do to like overcome those?
Usually, what I do is I'm too overconfident. I just look at myself sometimes and like I just look at myself. You can do this. You're better than that.
Yeah.
You're better than what you think you are. You should not doubt yourself. Something like that. So what I usually do is just boast out myself. Like I don't want like to be unmotivated. So usually it's better to motivate yourself and tell that you're better than anyone else rather than sulking and doing nothing for yourself and just saying like I'm so bad, I cannot do this, I cannot do that. You'd rather just tell yourself that I am the best. I can do this. Even though it's quite embarrassing and even though you don't know what's the outcome, at least you have the motivation to say that I am good.
So that's sort of like the law of assumption, right?
Yes.
Like when once you start believing in yourself, it starts to you start to channel it
Yes.
to the physical world, and maybe like thinking about how I can be better at this or I am better at this. You start to be better at that in the physical or in
Yes.
the real world, right?
So it's better to be motivated all the time and have the inspiration along with you. Because sometimes there's a lot of setbacks going throughout your experience, throughout your career, and a lot of things. Not just your career, but also your life. Because you will go through a lot of negative things, problems with your family, problems with friends, problems about these things. But if you just believe in yourself that you can do those things, you can thrive, you can move forward and just don't settle on the things that you already have and just try to grab on things that you think you can still have, then that's the real motivation there and that's going to be inspiring to you. So I hope everyone will do that also
Yes.
rather than just staying around and just wait for something.
I think this is such a probably close to heart topic to every writer out there, like
Yes,
experiencing writer's block
just
or
right.
just confusing, being in this state of confusion and whether you should continue writing. I think in fact this topic has probably been discussed on our roundtables, which is again another segment in the Festival of Storytellers. So if you're interested to find out what authors and readers have shared about writer's block or being in this state of mind, you can check out our roundtable sort of like videos in our website at www.thefestivalofstorytellers.com.
And we are still will be
So we'll still be here. There's still
there's gonna be
one,
a last live
yes,
session going on for
maybe later. We will have Miss Rotha Dawkins for our last live after of the hour
but
session.
before
But
that
before that, we will have. I think it was sort of like short lived. It was probably a bit lacking. Like people would have wanted more to hear from Miss John White. So to address that, to deliver, we have a pre-recorded video of her coming up next, which is another author of the hour session from her from the last or from the previous um, Festival of Storytellers event. So please tune in, and again later on, don't leave yet, and you can continue to interact with our next live author, which will be Ralpha Dawkins. So I hope you're all enjoying and maybe learning a lot about
our
literature,
authors.
about life in these events.